we'll be good to go.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Akash? Okay. Okay, we're good.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and apologies for my being late. I dutifully upgraded my password, and it just took longer to get back in. So I think I need to start the meeting with a roll call. So I'll ask Kathy to do that, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Caljo,
Present.
Michael Chernow,
Present.
Bella,
Yes, present.
Eric,
Present.
Dana,
Present.
Rebecca,
Present.
Robin,
Present.
Dimitri, Secretary.
I'm here, and let me, as my first official act, welcome Rebecca Gutman, who's the appointee of the Attorney General's office, to our meeting. Welcome, Rebecca. We're really glad to have you.
Nancy.
Be here, Secretary.
Good morning, Kathy. I'm here.
Good. And Matt.
Yep, I'm here.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone.
And now the first item on our agenda also requires a roll call, which is an approval of the minutes of the April 10th board meeting. I will not be able to approve them because I was not able to attend. So I'll wait for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. So Kathy, can you call the board?
Of course.
The board vote?
Commissioner Caljo,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Bella,
I think I'm going to abstain.
okay, Eric,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Abstain.
Robin.
Yes.
I'm going to try Dimitri. Okay. Secretary,
I'm going to abstain.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
So Rebecca, welcome. It may seem like all we do is do roll calls, but it's just at the beginning. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Audrey Gaster, our fearless leader, who I don't know if you saw this, but she had a great quote that the bill in Congress was repealed by paper cut. It was picked up by the New York Times, and I just thought it was just a great way to both demonstrate sort of Massachusetts understanding and commitment to the marketplace, but also just exactly what is and isn't going on in Washington. So I am really glad to hear Audrey's update on things, because she's right in the swing of it nationally.
And also, Kate, if I could add, we all know how deeply painful paper cuts are as well.
Yes, they can be very annoying, particularly for those of us who are bureaucrats. It's like workplace injuries.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Secretary. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our June meeting. Before we get into today's agenda, I also want to welcome our newest board member, Rebecca Gutman, recently appointed by Attorney General Campbell. Rebecca occupies our labor representation seat on the board, serving as Vice President at SEIU 1199. Our outreach team here at the Connector has been lucky to work with Rebecca for a number of years, working together to deliver enrollment support to SEIU's personal care attendant members. So we are especially looking forward to working more with her in her capacity as a member of our board of directors. Welcome, Rebecca. We are so glad you're here. As the Secretary noted, this is a particularly critical moment for the Health Connector and ACA marketplaces around the country, as we watch developments in Washington around the reconciliation bill passed by the House last month and currently before the United States Senate. House lawmakers proposed a number of provisions that set back the work of marketplaces like the Health Connector. The various changes would, together, make coverage harder to get and keep for the people we serve and make coverage more expensive. They would remove tax credit eligibility for between 55,000 and 60,000 lawfully present non-citizens who are currently in our coverage, including those in our Plan Type 1 Connector Care coverage, families who are below the poverty level earning $15,000 a year or less. These are lawfully present immigrants, people who work hard, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. They are the folks the Health Connector has worked tirelessly for the last 19 years to reach, to gain trust with, and to enroll. The bill would also fundamentally remake the process of how people verify their eligibility to enroll and to renew into coverage, adding friction, red tape, and delays. The House has also proposed to take away the autonomy of state-based marketplaces like ours by requiring us to cut our open enrollment almost in half, putting pressure on our enrollment supports and making it harder for applicants to get into coverage in a shorter time. All told, in Massachusetts, we expect the provisions currently in the bill, in combination, to result in the loss of coverage for more than 85,000 Health Connector enrollees. And when combining these provisions with the expected expiration of enhanced premium tax credits at the end of this year, for Massachusetts residents to lose $750 million per year in federal support for health coverage through the Health Connector. Zooming out, nationally, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates the reconciliation bill and the expiration of enhanced premium tax credits will result in 16 million Americans losing health coverage. Although most of the media and stakeholder attention to the healthcare losses that this bill will cause are focused on Medicaid, actually over half of those 16 million Americans projected to lose coverage, 8.2 million, are through ACA marketplaces. Since the crack of dawn on May 12th, when initial House language first became public, we have been involved nonstop with other state-based marketplace colleagues and other partners in response to these threats, working to detail the potential impacts on our membership, local healthcare systems, and economies that would be harmed by the bill's changes if they became law. We will continue to keep this board apprised as we remain at full tilt on this effort. With that backdrop, we will present today a budget for fiscal year 26 that assumes losses in membership as we prepare for a range of multidimensional potential outcomes of federal and state policymaking that is currently in play. I will note that the budget includes reserves equal to 6 months of operating expenses following the recommendation of our auditors. Our CFO, Carrie Miller, and the finance team have worked over a number of years to ensure our reserves are adequate, and I'm grateful for their continued diligence to ensure that our finances are sound and stable, particularly as we enter this period of heightened uncertainty. The federal policy situation is front and center on a minute-by-minute basis right now, but over the coming year, our foremost ground-level operational priority is the implementation of our new enrollment and premium billing vendor. Our enrollment and premium billing function is one of the most frequent, high-impact, high-touch ways that we interact with the hundreds of thousands of people we serve. The team and I have placed the highest level of priority on attaining a future state in this service area of operational excellence, increased automation and efficiency, and for our members to have a best-in-class experience marked by reliability and precision. Today, we present to you a recommendation to approve entering into a contract with the apparent successful bidder identified through a rigorous and competitive procurement process. We are confident that our new partner and a thorough and methodically developed implementation plan will lead to success for our members, and our strategic plans focus on operational excellence and customer service. The enrollment and premium billing work follows the same implementation management philosophy of our work with our new contact center vendor, another piece of our strategy to improve customer service across the board. Our new call center vendor, AHS, continues to progress successfully, now taking about 25% of calls, adding new classes of agents on schedule, and preparing to take all calls starting October 1st. AHS does plan on increasing open enrollment call center capacity by 30% from recent years, which will be vital in the case of a possibly shortened open enrollment. As we head toward the start of a new fiscal year, we have a number of other contract votes today, along with the recommended enrollment and premium billing vendor, including continuing our existing work with the DC marketplace, which provides operational support for Health Connector for Business. We continue to work on strengthening Health Connector for Business operations and enrollment. And last week, we had a strong presence at Benefest, the biggest broker association of the event of the year, where we were able to discuss the premium value plans and other cost-saving opportunities for small businesses to a new audience of brokers. Thank you to board member Eric Gulko and other leaders at the Broker Association for hosting us. This is, without question, one of the busiest and highest stakes times in our organization's 19-year history. Internally, we are sweating every detail, standing up significant and ambitious improvements to our operations that are critical to best serving our nearly 400,000 members, while at the same time externally fighting to prevent a set of changes to the Affordable Care Act that could erode the coverage gains made over the last 12 years here in Massachusetts and across the nation. Our team is fully engaged across the board. and we will be prepared for whatever transpires, working day in and day out to deliver affordable coverage to as many Massachusetts residents as possible. I want to thank and applaud my team for their ferocious dedication to our mission, regardless of whether we are facing headwinds or tailwinds. And before I close, I also want to quickly give a special welcome to the first round of interns and fellows that the Health Connector has welcomed this summer. The Health Connector recently launched a formal summer program for undergraduate and graduate students interested in the work that we do. We were inspired to set this pipeline boosting program up to help train, support, learn from, and cheer on the next generation of public service and public interest leaders who care as deeply as we all do about health coverage and who will, in just a few years' time, be our colleagues and our leaders. Welcome to each of you. And thank you to our board of directors for your continued commitment to our work and our future and your support as we work through this important and challenging time. So with that, I will hand back to you, Secretary. Oh, you're on mute, Secretary.
So one year I'll get this right, but that was a really packed executive director's report, and I know there's so much going on. Before we move on, we have a lot of this is a kind of an administrative heavy vote agenda because we have a lot of votes, and we have a federal update coming later in the session. But are there any questions specifically for Audrey before we move on? I know the team's been incredibly busy, both, as I said, locally and nationally. Is there anything else, any questions people have? I've been kind of, basically just applauding from the sidelines at all the work you guys are doing. But, it often, we spend a lot of time, particularly in state government, talking about Medicaid. But as Audrey points out, there are a lot of people in our state who will lose coverage to the marketplaces there'll be so many barriers that care will, it'll just be more trouble than it's worth. So hopefully not that. But is there anything any questions you have before we move on to the rest of the agenda, or we can pick it up during the federal session?
Not a question, but really a compliment to the Connector and Audrey in particular for her leadership at this time of crisis. Like you, Secretary, I have seen firsthand what educated advocacy can mean for Massachusetts, and the fact that we're so well aligned as an administration has become so clear to me, especially in this past 45-day period. So thank you to you and to Director Gasteier.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that.
Great. Well, we'll pick this up during the federal session, but I just wanted to give people a chance to at least catch our breath. And I think the next thing I have to do is introduce Trish, who will talk to us about the transition to AWS and Carahsoft, which is a renewal and will require a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, and good morning, everyone. I will be walking through 3 items, all of which will be presented to the board for a vote. I know the agenda is full, so I will move through the slides fairly quickly, but I'll pause before any of the votes to make sure that I address any questions that you have. The first vote is for renewal of both the Smartronix and Carahsoft contracts for fiscal year 2026. The contact center utilizes Amazon Web Services, or AWS, through an approved reseller, which is Smartronix. This contract was originally executed in 2026 through the Executive Office of Technology Services and Security. AWS is our preferred solution, and the Health Connector contracts with and pays Smartronix directly to support contact center operations. The Health Connector benefits from contracting with Smartronix as a certified reseller for the Commonwealth. We're relying on a vendor procured through a statewide process with all the strong contractual protections that come with a state contract. In addition, we receive a 16% discount off of list cost. Each year, we work with Smartronix to estimate the upcoming usage and cost for the next fiscal year. Some years we're more successful with those estimates, as we cannot predict external factors that may impact usage of the services listed on this slide. For fiscal year 2026, we elicited the help of our finance department to look at actual costs for both fiscal years 24 and 25, factor in the contact center transition and running parallel contact centers, our increased communication to members, and trying to account for any downstream effects of proposed changes at the federal level. For fiscal year 2026, we have estimated Smartronix costs to be just over $1.5 million. We followed a similar exercise for fiscal year 2026 costs for Carahsoft. We procure licenses to various contact center management and communications products through Carahsoft. With the help of the Health Connector Finance Department and including the same cost drivers discussed previously for Smartronix, we're proposing a not to exceed amount of $3.234 million for Carahsoft for FY26. How do these technical support vendors help advance our strategic plan? A reliable and stable contact center infrastructure helps us improve and modernize the applicant and enrollee experience. It also maintains and strengthens organizational structure and reliability. The tools that we use to support the contact center not only allow agents to answer calls, but allow us to track call metrics, identify trends, predict staffing needs, provide real-time reporting, and a host of other functions that go on behind the scenes that benefit both our members and our staff. The end result is a more stable technology infrastructure and the ability to provide best-in-class customer service. I will pause here for any questions before I turn it over to the secretary for a vote.
Could we, is it possible, maybe Kathy, could we just vote all three together? Because they are largely renewal contracts. I don't know. What do you think? Or should I just follow the script, Audrey? You just tell me. It's going to be just, we're just going to have to call the, what do you think?
I do think they probably need to be discreet just since they are separate contracts. I
There we go.
relate with this sentiment, but
so much for my administrative efficiency. Okay. So the Health Connector staff recommend that the board authorize the executive director to approve the forecasted cost for Smartronix for AWS cloud services for FY26 in the amount of $1.5 million and approve forecasting the license cost for Carahsoft for FY26 in the amount of $3.234484. I need a motion.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Kathy, could you call for the vote, please?
Of course.
And I'll stick to the script going forward. Sorry. Audrey.
Okay. Commissioner Caljo,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Bella,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Secretary Walsh,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item will be a presentation on Accenture's contract extension, and Trish will kick that off.
Thank you. Sorry, the advancing is a little slow. Doesn't want to move. There we go. The original contact center contract with Accenture is set to expire on August 8th of this year. Our new vendor, Automated Health Systems, or AHS, is expected to be taking 100% of our call volume by October 1st, 2025. This is only 1 month prior to the start of open enrollment. Given this will be AHS's first open enrollment with the Health Connector, and given the possibility of changes to open enrollment, the Health Connector would like to enter into a contract extension with Accenture to provide backup contact center services. In addition to AHS staffing 30% higher than we normally would during open enrollment due to the pending changes, we would also retain 66 agents from Accenture along with the required number of supervisory staff. The total amount for this contract would be $4.04 million. And I'm sorry, there we go. By taking a belt and suspenders approach for staffing during the upcoming open enrollment, we will be better prepared for higher than usual call volume and possibly an increased level of member confusion. Having seasoned Accenture agents will be a tremendous help to AHS and will allow us to maintain our high levels of customer service to callers. We're very grateful to Accenture for their continued partnership in helping to set AHS up for success and for their commitment to the Health Connector and our membership. How does this help advance our strategic plan? Contact center staff is of paramount importance as they are the face of the Health Connector to both applicants and members. They help improve and modernize the applicant and enrollee experience and maintain and strengthen organizational structure and system reliability. Accurate levels of well-trained and customer-friendly staff improve member outcomes, reduce escalations, and help us move towards increased enrollment and member retention. We would not be able to achieve our goal of consistently best-in-class customer service without contact center staffing. Before I turn it over for a vote, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Trish? So could I have a motion and oh, I didn't wait. Could I have a motion that the Health Connector to approve the Health Connector staff recommendation to authorize Audrey to enter into a contract extension with Accenture through January 30th, 2026?
So moved, and this makes real sense, particularly given what awaits us.
Second.
Thanks. Okay, Kathy, we need a roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Caljo,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Bella,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Dana,
Yeah.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Secretary,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, Trish, you're up one more time.
One more time, and then you can get rid of me. If I can get the slides to advance, we'll be in good shape. There we go. Doesn't like me. There we go. So my final presentation for board vote is an overview of the enrollment and premium billing vendor procurement and selection process, which resulted in the selection of Maximus US Services as the winning bidder. I will review current and future state, the process including bidders and pricing, implementation, and risks associated with transition. Currently, Softeon holds the full scope of our enrollment and premium billing contract. The contract includes enrollment, premium billing, federal reporting, member portal reporting, generation and management of member correspondence, and fulfillment. They were awarded the contract in April of 2019 and went live in 2020. We are currently in the first of 2 extension periods with Softeon. Our current agreement expires at the end of June 2026. In our future state, the new vendor will continue with the scope mentioned previously, except for fulfillment. The Health Connector will contract for those services under a separate agreement. Our goal in this procurement was to change how we think about supporting our members. We wanted to move from being a service provider that requires members to adapt to our technology to taking a customer-centric approach where the way we do business starts with the customer and works backwards to the technology that supports them. To do that, our goal was to find a vendor with expert technology that would provide a seamless customer experience. As noted previously, we made the decision to contract for fulfillment services separately. It's not unusual for vendors to use a subcontractor for fulfillment services, as it is a highly specialized business. In contracting for the service directly, the Health Connector can retain oversight of the fulfillment vendor and eliminate the need to work through the enrollment and premium billing vendor. In addition to the scope change, the Health Connector also restructured procurement and contract documents to address gaps in the current contract, to account for changes in our business, and to incorporate lessons learned. We wanted a vendor with experience delivering comparable services within a healthcare or marketplace setting, and most importantly, we wanted a vendor that shared our future state vision to provide best-in-class customer service. As discussed previously, the scope of the procurement included current services with fulfillment carved out. It also asked vendors to provide solutions that surpass what we have in place today. For example, additional payment options, ability for members to pay at a retail location, and an improved member portal experience. The procurement team sought a vendor with a customer-centric approach with respect to both technology and business processes, a vendor that could manage the scope of the work as well as the risks associated with implementation, a vendor that could manage the complexities of open enrollment, and a vendor that would continually work to improve their systems and processes to gain efficiencies and improve customer service. The team spent a considerable amount of time focused on ways to make this procurement a success. The procurement documents were modeled after those developed for the contact center and technology procurements. Cross-functional teams were included in the development and review of documents, allowing for input from every corner of the Health Connector. Lessons learned have been and continue to be central to this entire process. We held listening sessions with staff who were involved in the last enrollment and premium billing procurement to find out what went well, what didn't, how could it have gone better, and more importantly, what have we missed? We recently sat with each staff member who worked on the contact center procurement and continue to support that ongoing transition to find out what worked, what didn't, and what lessons can be applied to this project. From these meetings, we developed a list of lessons learned, grouped by category that have been presented across the agency and form the basis for the work that we're doing. A few examples of those lessons learned: a simple governance structure with a single and clear project sponsor, functional scope assigned to work tracks with defined scope, lead, and teams, temporary staff to support our teams not only with this project, but to help backfill the day-to-day work, a new process which results in improved requirements documentation, and an updated library of agency standard operating procedures. In parallel to all of this work, the team also started a separate work track to develop a highly structured implementation plan. The procurement was posted on January 17th. The scope noted below was referenced in a previous slide. Scoring sheets were prepared for members of the scoring team. Bidders were scored on responses to business, programmatic, technology, and cost sections of the procurement. Evaluations were done at both the individual and team levels. Team members read each bid and recorded their scores for discussion during team meetings. Team meetings were held to arrive at a collective score for each section of the bidder response. During meetings, each team member discussed their individual score for a section, noted strengths and weaknesses of the bidder response, and scores were then averaged for an overall score. Cost responses were reviewed and analyzed by the Health Connectors finance team. Scoring team members were not provided with the scoring responses up front, but were given that information after all the other scoring was complete. Based on the team scores, 2 bidders were invited to participate in oral presentations. Bidders were asked to cover specific topics during their presentations and to provide the Health Connector with demonstrations of systems that would be used to perform the scope of the contract. Bidders were sent some questions regarding their bid prior to the oral presentation to ensure that those items were covered during the presentation or the demonstration. Bidders were also required to answer questions as they arose during the presentation, as well as to host a Q&A session where they were asked questions that had not previously been sent to them. Following the oral presentations, the scoring team reviewed group scores and made any adjustments based on information learned during those presentations. Both bidders who presented were asked to provide a best and final offer to the Health Connector. Once those were received, the team went back a final time to review group scores and make adjustments based on the new pricing. We received 3 bids in response to the procurement: Maximus, Optum, and our incumbent vendor, Softeon. The evaluation team chose Maximus as the successful bidder. We felt that Maximus could provide the best solution and was the best overall value for the Commonwealth. Their bid was comprehensive and innovative. Their oral presentation was led by a team that clearly had extensive knowledge of enrollment and premium billing services, and they submitted competitive pricing. Maximus fully understands the Health Connectors business and strategic direction to provide best-in-class customer service. They have been a strong partner in the government arena for decades, including more than 10 years working with state-based marketplaces. The team that they have assembled to work on this contract are experts in their field and clearly demonstrated their extensive knowledge and capabilities during their oral presentation. As stated previously, Maximus has a wide breadth of experience at both the state and federal levels. They currently provide enrollment, premium billing, and a website comparison tool for MassHealth. They staff the call center for Health Connector for Business through our partnership with the DC Exchange. They also have a contract with the Health Connector to provide services which include translations, plain language review, and document remediation for accessibility. In 2023, they entered into a short-term contract with us to assist with outbound calls to members as part of the PHE Unwind activities. They have a local presence with an office in Quincy and are backed by extensive corporate resources that have the ability to provide personnel or other support for this project. Finally, Maximus has the unique perspective through their contact center work in Massachusetts and their previous work with the Health Connector to fully understand our customer journey from the time an application is submitted to the time that individual calls our contact center as a member. They know the various touch points and processes associated with that journey and are best positioned to work with the Health Connector and our other vendors to make that experience as seamless as possible. Maximus provided the lowest cost response of all the bidders. After submitting their best and final offer and working through further adjustments during our contract discussions, their final cost proposal is $31.4 million over the 4 years of the contract. This slide contains a breakdown of the costs over the life of the contract. The one-time implementation costs of $7.45 million will be paid out as milestones are achieved. Years 2 through 4 are fixed price contract totaling $31.47 million. Enrollment in premium billing work at the Health Connector is complex and represents our largest contract in scope. It is the single highest driver of calls to our call center. As such, the implementation of this contract is the top priority across the agency. We started work early, and we have spent a lot of time laying the groundwork for transition. Finally, we know from experience that cutovers are difficult, and due to the complexities of our work, can be unsuccessful. Therefore, we have built into our implementation plan a 3-month window where we will run as many processes in parallel with the current vendor prior to go live as possible. This strategy allows us to address any issues or discrepancies as we prepare for July 1st, 2026. This has worked extremely well for us in the contact center transition, and for this project should put us in a solid place for go live. Despite all of our planning, lessons learned, and the change in scope, there will still be risks during implementation. While we have hired temporary resources to help support our staff, there are still competing projects that require shared services, such as open enrollment, and uncertainties with changes at the federal level that may impact staff bandwidth. Data conversion is complex, and while we have a separate work track devoted to this work, there are dependencies which could affect timelines or other downstream work. We do rely on other partners and vendors who also have competing priorities that are outside of our control. For that, we will need to be diligent with our planning and very clear with our expectations of those partners. While running parallel systems helps solve the issue of a full cutover, it does introduce other factors, such as uncovering potential discrepancies that may require additional time and resources to resolve. As noted previously, the Health Connector started work on plans for a possible transition early. Our project management office has been involved, and we have hired a temporary implementation manager who has expertise in the type of transition we are doing. That individual will help coordinate the technical aspects of the project. We have a joint governance structure with Maximus and will work together to develop a detailed project plan which incorporates all aspects of the transition. Throughout the process, we will continue to measure progress against the plan, track lessons learned, and best practices. How does this work advance our strategic plan? Improved enrollment in premium services helps to improve and modernize the applicant and enrollee experience. It also maintains and strengthens organizational structure and system reliability. Focusing on reducing administrative burdens for members that complicate enrollment and billing will help improve customer experience. In addition, a stable system will also allow staff to shift from involvement in the day-to-day processes and focus on more innovative ways to improve the overall customer experience. I know I ran through that very quickly, but I'm happy to take questions before we move for the board vote.
Yeah, and I would just remind the board that this was a very large contract for one vendor. Now we're switching vendors. So contradicting myself earlier, I'm glad we did take this separately as a vote. And I think Trish ran through a lot of information and a lot of process. I've been kind of following along. The team spent a lot of time understanding this. It's hard to switch systems. It's not something they undertook lightly, but also the procurement process worked, and we ended up with a vendor that I think will be a better platform for us to move forward in the future, and certainly at a better price point. But we really should just take a minute if anyone has any questions, because this is a big deal, and like any implementation, it won't go 100% smoothly. And I see questions up. Great. I'll start with Eric.
Thank you, Secretary. Wonderful presentation, Trish. Looks like it was a really thorough process and looks like a very positive result in all respects. I noted also the significant cost savings with the proposed vendor. And while it's great to have that savings, I just would pose the question, have you been able to identify how they're able to propose the services at less than half the cost of the other proponents? And is there anything that you've noted that we may be giving up? And lastly, at renewal, is there any sort of cap on what they're going to do at the end of the first term in terms of proposing a renewal? So I know there's a few questions, but whatever you can answer would be great. Thank you.
So I'll go through them backwards. So no, there is not a cap for renewal. There are, I think we can do 2 extensions at the end of this contract. So it could be any increment of time, and I think it's over 4 years. So there is not a cap for that. We have not discussed internally or with them specifically asking the question, how can you do this at this price when we already spend that price, or we got proposals for a different price? At this point, we can't have any of those discussions about any other bid or bid cost because the contract hasn't been fully executed. They do have an internal system that they use, which they have used in other states. They are using Oracle as their financial system. So that's a leading financial software platform that we will be using. So it will not be a homegrown system. Right now, we do have a lot of manual processes in place. So that does cost us some money to maintain those processes, but we'll be moving to more automated systems. So that should help. And we have pulled out fulfillment. And while most of fulfillment costs are around usage of supplies, paper, envelopes, there is still a piece of the cost that will transition over to the fulfillment vendor. So that's not accounted for in Maximus's bid.
But all 3 were quoting on the same sets of services.
Correct.
And the winning bid has done this before with other state-run exchanges, so they should know the scope of what they're proposing really well, right? And what it takes to execute on it.
Correct. And we're a little bit different in Massachusetts. We do things differently than other states, but Maximus does have the product developed and used and ready for us. One of our bidders did not have the product developed for us and needed to spend the year developing and creating that product, which we felt was too much of a risk given our timeframes.
Yeah.
So that also would add to the cost of that bid.
No doubt. That certainly would explain part of it. Thank you.
Okay.
I think Nancy was next and then Bella.
Thanks. As someone who's been on the board a long time, I sometimes feel badly, Trish, for you and your colleagues when you present, because this is a board that I think is often, pays attention to everything, but sometimes gets more animated by policy topics. So that may be my projection. So I've come to appreciate, however, how absolutely central these functions are to the connector, and painful experience of when they don't go smoothly. So I just want to recognize the extraordinary amount of work that goes into doing this and doing it well. And thank you and your team for that. I was going to ask the question, one of the questions Eric asked about cost savings, but could you talk just a little bit more, maybe with a couple specific examples of how Maximus's Medicaid experience will really help the connector?
Sure. So Maximus has had Medicaid experience in other states. In Massachusetts, at one point they had the contract for both the contact center as well as the provider services. So the Mass Health Choice, the website tool that's used, the enrollment and premium billing activities, the provider credentialing. And the fact that they've picked up the phones and actually spoken to customers and talked to them about the barriers that they encounter, whether it's related to a claim or a carrier issue that has to get resolved or the application process, they were the only vendor that really knows everything from A to Z. They've lived it. They've not just heard about it, or they don't just know that a contact center agent has to access HIX or whatever systems that we're using. They've actually gotten the feedback from the callers and the members and the applicants. And so I think that that holistic view will be extremely helpful. They're not just focused on their piece, which is the enrollment and premium billing piece, not knowing what's upstream, not knowing what's downstream. So I think that gives us, that gave them an advantage to us to be able to work with us on that entire member journey from start to finish.
Yeah, and also we know people go back and forth between
Correct.
Marketplace and Medicaid. So really understanding that is important. So thank you.
Yep.
Bella.
I guess I had the same question as Eric, and so I'm glad that was answered. My first question is, what other state-based exchanges does Maximus support? My second question is, as we all know, Massachusetts does do things differently. What is like some of the biggest risks you see that Maximus may not be able to accommodate right away, which is why I think we are also have the existing vendor simultaneously also working at the same time as Maximus. So are there a couple big risks that you see for Maximus?
Well, so Softeon, a lot of Softeon system is proprietary and internal to them. So we do need to work through that. It makes things a little bit more difficult, not that they won't be doable, but it isn't like our contact center where we did sort of a lift and shift, where we own Salesforce, we own the data. We're just bringing in a vendor to use the systems that we own. This is a different kind of transition in that we'll be working with an incumbent vendor who owns the system that we're working in. Obviously, the data is our data, but data conversions are big and they take a lot of planning and they can be very complex. We didn't have to do a data conversion on the contact center side, so that made things a little bit easier. So I think that combined with the systems differences in this particular case are potential issues for us to have to resolve and to work with the incumbent vendor on. We're confident though that Softeon will be working with us to get this done. On the first question that you had, I will have to go back and take a look. I don't have the information in front of me, but I can let you know exactly where Maximus has had both state-based exchange and Medicaid experience. As part of our bid process, we did require vendors to give us that information, so I can send that over to you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Nancy said about the work that the staff has done on this transition. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the easiest for the team. So really appreciate all the work that went into this. I think we need to put up maybe the specifics of the vote. So, and then ask for a motion if we can advance the slides.
Yes, it won't advance, of course, because you're asking me to advance it.
I can read it.
Hang on 1 second. Let's see.
I have it in my notes. Okay, here we go. This is a big deal for the team and a big deal for us as a board to vote. It's not only the amount, which is, more than I've got on me, but it really represents a shift for the team and an approach. And I would argue that, Nancy alluded to the policy changes that we spend more time on, but given the policy environment we're in, the ability to manage enrollment, disenrollment, as quickly and as efficiently as possible and as effectively as possible, I think is really probably the most important thing we do to preserve coverage in Massachusetts. So it's an important time for all of us. So this is a big vote. So Kathy, I'll ask you to start with well, first we need a motion and a second. I'm happy to move it.
Second.
Thanks, Nancy. Kathy, can you take the vote?
I can take a vote. Okay, Commissioner Caljo,
Absolutely, yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Bella,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Dimitri. He said he joined. Secretary.
Yes, can you hear me, Kathy?
I can hear you. Secretary,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, terrific. Thanks for everyone. So the next item on the agenda is on the DC Health Benefit Exchange Authority contract. This will include a vote, and it will, Nelson will kick off the presentation. And Nancy, I'm going to need to drop at 10 o'clock as opposed to 10:45 as I'd hoped. So if I will just turn the chair over to you, if that's okay. Do we need a vote for that?
I don't believe that we do.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just got a text that I need to get on a call at 10 that I wasn't expecting to have to join. So,
Okay, that's
okay.
fine. Yeah.
I was going to have to leave at 10:45, but I was hoping we'd get there so I wouldn't have to. So anyway, so if I'm no longer here, Nancy, you're in Nancy's capable hands. Thanks, Nelson. I'll listen till I need to drop.
Okay, good morning. And I'm going to try to advance the slide here. There's a little bit of a delay. While I wait for that to catch up, I'll just set up what we're here for today. So we have a memorandum of understanding between the Health Connector and the DC Health Benefit Exchange, DCHBX, which requires that we agree annually on the operating budget. This includes direct costs for the DCHBX staff and also pass-through costs for their vendors that support our Health Connector for Business program. Today, unlike some of the previous votes, this is not a new contract or a renewal. This is based on the memorandum of understanding that we have. It requires that we annually agree on the operating budget. And today we'll be requesting Board of Directors to vote to approve our proposed budget for FY26 and execute the Fifth Amendment of our memorandum of understanding with DC. And just as a reminder of the support that DCHBX and their vendors provide for us for the Health Connector for Business program, that includes contact center support, operation support, and technical support, as well as software licensing and administrative fees. So it's a combination of operations, customer service, technology, and licenses, all kind of packaged into this agreement with DC. And for the proposed FY26 operating budget, this reflects a increase of $700,397 compared to the FY25 operating budget. The main drivers of this increase are increase in contracted DevOps technology support related to increase in hourly rates for the primary tech vendor, and also additional hours that are planned for operations and maintenance related to increase in security monitoring and system upgrades. And additionally, we're looking to increase one contact center agent to support our increase in call volume. And then as far as why this is important, this is critical to supporting the Health Connector's strategic goal of maintaining and strengthening our organizational structure and system reliability. This supports our ability to provide a stable HCB platform and ongoing maintenance and support for technology and customer service operations. I'll pause there for any questions before we move forward to the vote. Bella.
How many, I think we talked about this earlier this week, but I can't remember. How many years have we been working with the DC Exchange on the shop?
With DC since 2017 is when we first began the relationship. We went live in with plans effective 2018. Our current MOU started in 2022, And we have one more renewal eligible starting next year that would bring us to March of 2027.
Okay. Have we tracked, I guess, their costs from 2017 to now, like, and has their services expanded over time?
I would say the scope of services have not expanded. The cost increase primarily is driven by either something rate-based in terms of, the technology rates was one example. DC's contract with their technology vendor includes annual rate increases, and that's one way. And the contact center increase is another example of, increase based on our call volume growing over the years. This is the first time that we've added a call center agent since we went live in 2017. So yes, there are changes over time, but it's either directly related to an increase in demand or an increase in the rates for the underlying contracts.
And do you know if they support any other state-based exchanges in the small group market, or are we the only one?
I think we're the only one.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware.
And Nelson, our membership has gone up quite a lot over the course of the contract, hasn't it?
Yes, we have increased significantly since 2018 when we went live. We're currently around 14,000 total covered lives. So again, we're looking to continue to support the growth. And while we're doing this, as we look ahead to the future, we are definitely looking at what are all the opportunities for efficiency and scalability as we continue to grow the program. Those will be things that we'll include in our long-term planning as we come back to the board in the fall and discuss what are the future opportunities for the program. But that's very much kind of on our minds in terms of what are the opportunities for HCB.
Any other questions for Nelson before we go to the vote? Seeing none. Nelson, can you advance the slide? There's someone.
Sure. Trying to get us there. All right, here we go.
Great. So the vote is Health Connector staff recommend that the Board of Directors vote to approve the proposed Health Connector for Business fiscal year 26 operating budget and execute the Fifth Amendment of the MOU with the DC-based healthcare exchange. So could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Matt.
Second.
Thank you. Kathy, I think you're up.
I'm up. Okay. Commissioner Caljo,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Bella,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Robin. I'll come back. Dimitri. Losing everybody. Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go back to Robin.
Kathy, this is Robin. I said yes, but I think you didn't hear me.
I didn't
So,
hear you. Sorry about
yes,
that.
Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Great. So the motion carries. So the next item on the agenda is going to be a presentation on our fiscal year 26 administrative budget. This too requires a vote, and it'll be presented by Carrie and Rakita. So Carrie, you starting?
I am. Good morning, Nancy. Good morning, Madam Secretary and members of the board. Rakita, do you have control of the slides? Here we go. Fantastic. I'm going to kick it off and then I will pass it to Rakita. Again, good morning, everybody. The purpose of this presentation is to review our current fiscal year 25 administrative budget projections and present the recommended budget for 26 for a vote. Both fiscal year 25 projections as well as the FY 26 projection were reviewed and approved by the subcommittee last month. Today, we meet during a time of uncertainty and volatility with respect to policy and fiscal challenges at both the federal and state levels. Our budget assumptions reflected in the projections that we will review reflect current law. Specifically, with respect to enrollment, we are assuming that enhanced federal premium tax credits which have reduced the cost of the Connector Care program to the Commonwealth since going into effect in 2021, will expire in December of 2025. We also assume the same thing about the Connector Care pilot expansion program. We will learn more in the coming months, both as the conference committee proceeds and proposed federal reconciliation legislation works its way through the Senate and then the House. We will update and share our projections accordingly as these circumstances change. With that said, please be assured that we are working collectively to ensure that we prepare for any changes to come, and we have modeled numerous scenarios to help understand any potential impacts on our budget. Both fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26 have been and will continue to be years of significant transition. As we've just discussed, we are in the midst of transitioning from one contact center vendor to another, as well as implementing a separate vendor for contact center technology services. We will also, over the next year, work to implement Maximus, the new enrollment and premium billing vendor, as well as contract with and implement a new fulfillment vendor. Vendor implementations, as well as running vendors concurrently to reduce risk, obviously result in fairly significant one-time temporary costs, and these are all reflected in our budget. Current fiscal year 25 projections are favorable compared to those presented. Oh, I think you need to go back. Sorry, Rakita. The other way.
Yeah, I'm trying. Sorry, the
Sorry.
slides are.
No worries.
Oh my God.
Don't worry.
This is making me have flashbacks to teaching on Zoom. So I, for one, am so sympathetic.
Yeah, I apologize. It's kind of stuck.
That's okay. Can we go the other way, or Anyway, let me wrap up the overview slide, please, while Rakita can get us back to where we need to be. Current fiscal year 25 projections are favorable compared to those presented last July. Details will be discussed on subsequent slides, but this is primarily due to the outcome of the contact center and technology vendor procurements. The fiscal year 26 recommendation obviously is very much full of transitions and one-time costs, and we've accounted for multiple vendor implementations and concurrent operating costs. We are projecting year-end reserves to be about $58 million, which is consistent with our auditor's recommendation. If there are no questions, I will proceed to fiscal year 25 details. So on the next slide, we have our projected fiscal year 25 enrollment. It reflects just over a 3% increase in member months compared to the projections that were shared with this board in July. 80% of the variance in membership comes from the core Connector Care program. The core Connector Care program is projected to have a net growth of almost 45,000 members, or 21%, from June of 2024 to June of 2025, which is obviously very significant. The Connector Care expansion pilot program is expected to have just over 62,000 members at the end of FY25. With that said, we are expecting to have over 417,000 members, accounting for retroactivity, enrolled in coverage at the end of FY25, which is at an all-time high for the Health Connector. This slide here provides a high-level overview of our fiscal year 25 administrative budget. We are comparing current projections to those shared with the board last July. At the top of the exhibit, you see projected member months, followed by revenue, our expense line items, and our net position and reserves. The adjustments you see for depreciation and GASB 51, with respect to GASB 51, this reflects the one-time purchase of an intangible asset that is depreciated over its useful life. In our case, these are implementation costs associated with our contact center and premium billing vendor. Current fiscal year 25 projections are favorable compared to the budget from last July, primarily due to expense reductions, which we will discuss in more detail on the next slide. With respect to revenue, we do have a $2.5 million overall net increase. And as far as expenses are concerned, we have about $7 million in one-time costs in fiscal year 25. And those represent a portion of the implementation costs for the contact center and technology vendors, a vendor to assist with documentation of standard operating procedures, and temporary contractors to support Health Connector staff during the implementation for the enrollment and premium billing vendor. And on the next slide here, this provides details on our projected expenditures. The largest decrease is for contact center enrollment and premium processing. This is primarily the result of capitalizing a portion of the cost of the new contact center and technology vendors. We included $18 million in fiscal year 25 for this implementation. The total cost was about $13 million. Of this, based on the project implementation plan and accounting rules, we were required to capitalize about $10 million. With respect to the Health Connector share of the operations and maintenance cost for our shared eligibility system with MassHealth, which is the HICS, our obligation for fiscal year 25 will be lower than budgeted, as communicated to us by our colleagues at EHS. The decrease in personnel and fringe is due to departures and the time needed to fill those vacancies that are deemed critical to support business needs. Lastly, there is a favorable variance in IT and administrative costs due to timing and lower than budgeted projections. I will pause here to see if there are any questions about fiscal year 25 before passing it on to Rakita to begin discussion on FY26.
Any questions for Carrie? Looks like Rakita, you can go ahead then.
Thank you.
Good morning. Our FY 2026 projections for enrollment reflect a 7.5% increase in total member months compared to FY 2025. We expect the core Connector Care program to continue to grow, but at a slower rate than what we have seen in the past couple of years. From June 2025 to June 2026, we expect a net growth of 12,500 core Connector Care members, which is significantly less than the 45,000 mentioned for the prior year. With both the enhanced APTCs and Connector Care pilot expansion due to end in December 2025, the total non-group membership for qualified health plans in January 2026 is expected to decrease by 5%. This assumes that less than 80% of members in Connector Care expansion would move to another CCA program or to MassHealth, and the balance would terminate their coverage. By next June, we are projecting over 411,000 members, of which 65% would be Connector Care members, an increase of 4 percentage points compared to June 2025. This slide provides a high-level summary of our proposed 2026 budget recommendations compared to the current 2025 projections. At the top, we can see the projected member months, which we discussed in the last slide for enrollment. This is followed by revenue, which is expected to decrease by about $3 million. This is primarily due to the recommended reduction in CCTF funding by $10 million. The difference of $7 million is an increase in career assessments based on increased membership and projected rate increases. The expenses are projected to increase by about $22 million, of which about $18 million reflects one-time costs. These primarily include $7.5 million for enrollment and premium billing implementation, a placeholder for implementation of the fulfillment vendor, $2.3 million for temporary contractors to support Health Connector staff through implementations, and the Accenture contract extension. These expenses are detailed on the next slide. The adjustments include depreciation and GASB 51. In our case, these implementation costs are associated with the new contact center vendor. Our FY 2026 recommendation reflects a balanced budget and estimated year-end reserves of about $58 million. This is constant with our auditor's recommendation to retain 6 months of operating expenses on hand. The current slide provides details on projected expenses for FY 2026. The largest variance is for the contact center and premium billing due to the one-time costs associated with implementation of the enrollment and premium billing vendor, as Trish discussed earlier. It also accounts for membership increases. We have also included estimates for costs associated with implementing of a fulfillment vendor. With respect to the Health Connector's share of operations and maintenance cost for our shared eligibility system with MassHealth, HICS, our obligation will be higher as compared to FY 2025 as communicated by our EHS colleagues. This is due to an increase in membership allocation rate, which is used to project and share costs between Health Connector and MassHealth. The decrease in funding for Navigator's outreach and education simply reflects the one-time FY 2025 activities associated with redetermination period. We're projecting an increase in personnel cost. Additional full-time permanent IT and operations staff were hired in FY 2025 to address critical business needs. We will realize a full year's cost for these positions in FY 2026. 2 new positions have been included in the budget to support improvements to our operation and compliance efforts. This variance also reflects a corresponding increase in fringe benefits, cost of living adjustments, and a new internship program. The IT and administrative departments will see an increase in cost, primarily driven by higher spending on software and data storage to support our growing digital needs, and planned investments in new equipment to ensure operational reliability and security. Additional miscellaneous costs are aimed at enhancing administrative efficiency. With respect to consulting and professional support, this reflects the one-time temporary support needed for implementation of our enrollment and premium billing vendor. This totals to 2.3 million. Are there any questions?
Rakita, I had one, which was the reduction for the Navigators outreach and enrollment. Earlier in a different presentation, we talked about this is going to likely be a very complicated and confusing year for members. So just love to hear from anybody kind of what the thinking about reducing that spending was. And I'm sure the whole board at some point would, not today, but would love to hear how we're thinking about supporting our community partners and, you know, what's going to be a really challenging environment.
I'm happy to take that one. Thank you, Nancy. Point very well taken. I think we're thinking, I think it was noted, some of this reduction is really coming down off of the very high activity period from redeterminations when we were really, you know, all over the state trying to make sure folks coming out of MassHealth knew their coverage option through the connector, supporting that big transition. So it's not really a reduction below what would have been like our standard baseline. Your point is well taken. I think we're going to be thinking in the coming weeks very holistically about implications for changes this open enrollment. To your point, it could be shorter, there could be new requirements, changes in terms of folks' eligibility. So with respect to Navigators outreach, as well as other marketing, communications efforts, et cetera, I think we'll be taking a fresh look at all of that and figuring out what we need to meet the moment. And that may include, you know, augmentation or channeling resources from one place to another just to support a much more intense and probably high need period. So we can take that back and we'll come back, and that will likely be a conversation bigger than just Navigators, but we'll make sure that that is certainly incorporated.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a very, very challenging environment in which to do any kind of planning. And also great, and not surprised that it's on your radar screen. We'll look forward to hearing, as we know more, what you all are thinking. Eric.
Thank you. I'm just trying to connect the dots a little bit. So it looks like about 15 to 20% drawdown on the reserves to fund expenses this year. But what you're telling us is that it's due to mostly these one-time costs, so that if we were to remove those one-time costs, is it safe to say we wouldn't have to touch the reserves? So the reserves aren't for ongoing operations. It's really, the reserve drawdown is really to accommodate these changes. Is that correct? And I did hear that we're following the advice of the experts to still maintain 6 months of reserves.
Yeah, would you like me to take that, Rakita?
Yeah,
I'm happy
go ahead.
to. Eric, thank you for your question. We really only need 6 months worth of operating expenses in our reserves, no more. And so what we're currently have is about 70 million, which is quite honestly too much. And so if you take out the one-time cost for fiscal year 26, you're down closer to 100 million. And so even still, we feel that the reserves of about the 58 million is really where we need to be to make sure that we have the cushion that we need to support, again, the 6 months worth of operating expenses. And because fiscal year 2025 was so favorable, that's kind of why you see an, if you will, unfavorable budget in fiscal year 26, but we are laser focused on our reserves, and we feel that that 58 million is adequate for where we need to be, given fiscal challenges in the state as well.
Okay, thank you.
From a strategic plan, sorry.
I think Nancy, you're on mute. I don't know if you were saying something.
No, I would just say carry on. That's what I was saying. So
Thank you. So from a strategic plan perspective, our administrative budget aligns with the pillar of maintaining and strengthening organizational structure and stability. From an equity perspective, we dedicate funding to support members who are in greater need of assistance to access health coverage. Examples are the funding allocated to navigators, community specialists, and the language line at the contact center. We want to provide members with support they need, where they need it, and in their preferred language. Our budget also acts as a financial roadmap for our organization and employees, guiding resource allocation and helping to inform strategic decision making. Thank you. I'm going to pass this to Nancy.
no, great. So, any other questions? Bella, was there anything you wanted to say as chair of the board committee that has worked?
No, I think thanks Carrie and your team for pulling all this together, and thank you also for being patient with all my questions over the past couple months. I guess the other thing I wanted to point out is we're drawing down less from CCTF, which Eric, I don't know if you had focused on that. So that's the other thing. So next year, we might draw down more. So then that's also going to help with the, adding to our reserves if we need to.
Great.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bella.
Bella.
And Bella, thank you for all of your work. I learned a lot from every single question you ask. So I look forward to you continuing to ask a lot of them. Okay, so it's now we need to vote.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
But you don't even know what I'm going to propose, Commissioner.
I see it on the screen.
Oh, I don't really? I don't see it on the screen.
I do. I did at one point.
Oh, okay. Well,
Not there anymore.
you retain better than I. Okay, so the Health Connector staff recommend that the board vote to approve the proposed fiscal year 26 administrative budget recommendations. So with the commissioners, motion, may I have a second, please?
Second.
Great. Okay, Kathy.
Okay, Commissioner Caljo,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Bella,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Dimitri,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt. Is Matt
Yes,
there?
sorry.
Okay,
I keep
that's
putting
okay.
myself on mute.
Thank you, everyone.
Good. Thank you, Kathy. All right, so our final item is a federal policy update, and Marissa is going to kick that off. So hi, Marissa.
Good morning. Let me see if the slides like me any better. There we go. Okay, so today I'll provide an update on a variety of federal activity related to the Health Connectors work across all branches of the federal government. On the executive front, we spoke at our last meeting about a proposed rule issued by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services related to marketplace integrity. Apologies here. Well, hopefully the slides will catch up with me, but I'll keep telling you about the rule, which we discussed in April. CMS received over 26,000 comments on the proposed rule in April, and they sent a final version to the Office of Management and Budget on May 2nd, where it remains today, awaiting clearance to be released. As a reminder, it included a variety of policies that would impact our work, many for 2026. Among them, CMS proposed to restrict the Health Connector's ability to tailor the length of open enrollment, imposing a November 1st to December 15th open enrollment period nationwide, half the amount of time we've had for over a decade. And we begin this with the open enrollment period for 2026 plans. Broadly, it adds administrative requirements, such as around eligibility and enrollment documentation and renewal processes for some individuals. And the administration seeks to erode the value of coverage for consumers through the rule by changing what is considered an essential health benefit, shifting more premium and out-of-pocket costs to consumers, and allowing for skimpier coverage across metallic tiers. Good job. Well, while that has been pending, Congress has been working on a budget reconciliation bill addressing all aspects of the national economy. Lawmakers in the House adopted the proposals in the marketplace regulation issued by CMS back in March. And in addition, they included a variety of other provisions with significant impacts to marketplaces. First, they would limit tax credits to a narrow subset of lawfully present non-citizens. Newly excluded lawfully present individuals would lose eligibility for tax credits and cost-sharing reductions, instead being required to enroll at full cost if they want to maintain coverage. This includes lawfully present groups that have traditionally been eligible, including those with work and student visas, refugees, asylees, and victims of trafficking and other violent crimes. Non-citizens with incomes below the poverty line would lose subsidies for 2026, while others would lose eligibility beginning in 2027. Lawmakers would make enrolling in and maintaining marketplace coverage harder by adding administrative barriers. Notably, they would eliminate the ability of marketplaces to passively renew individuals with tax credits using federal and state data sources, instead requiring that enrollees take action to reapply each year. And they would eliminate the opportunity for people to enroll with tax credits while they resolve any eligibility verifications that require paper documentation to be submitted, meaning that many people would delay enrollment until verifications have been processed or forego enrollment altogether. Finally, the House's proposals add instability to the market for 2026 in several ways. House lawmakers could have included an extension of the enhanced federal premium tax credit set to expire at the end of the year, but did not. Further, they proposed appropriating funding for federal cost-sharing reductions, which have not been paid by the executive branch since 2017 on the grounds Congress did not appropriate them. Cost-sharing reduction payments would not be available to qualified health plans that cover abortion services, as all fully funded Massachusetts health plans are required to do under state law. The House proposed to make this change for 2026, which adds uncertainty to the rate review process currently underway in Massachusetts and many other states. These provisions are in addition to a number of Medicaid and Medicare provisions also aimed at reducing federal spending and limiting health insurance for non-citizens. The House passed this bill by one vote on May 22nd, and it is now with the Senate.
Marissa, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
On the taking gender affirming care out of essential health benefits, what's the implication of that for whether we can or can't include something in MCC?
Those would be unrelated. So,
okay. Yep.
You know, they could still be covered services. There's nothing prohibiting their coverage, but what would be prohibited would be tax credits that could fund that portion of the premium applicable to those services. And there are some cost sharing protections associated with essential health benefits as well that would no longer apply.
So they're not called out specifically in the way abortion services are, but yeah. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, are we restricted? I mean, don't we have state law protecting those gender affirming provisions as well? Just like with the abortion coverage, so we need to cover it, yes?
We do have non-discrimination requirements in the state that would speak to that, and I know the Division of Insurance has put out guidance on that. I don't know, Commissioner Caljo, if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
No, other than that guidance still holds true. And we've reiterated that, I think, as recently as about 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
Thank you. So all told, the House's bill would result in over 85,000 individuals losing Health Connector coverage, and thousands more would experience delays in enrollment while they resolve verification requests. Between not extending enhanced premium tax credits and limiting their availability, Massachusetts residents stand to lose $750 million a year in federal financial support to stay covered. When we incorporate expected coverage losses resulting from Medicaid provisions in the bill, we could see the uninsured population in the state more than double. Those who remain insured are likely to have greater health needs, which would increase premiums. On a national level, the Congressional Budget Office estimates 16 million Americans will lose coverage between the inaction on premium tax credit enhancements and the policies included in the bill. A slight majority of these individuals would lose coverage from marketplaces across the country, with the remainder losing Medicaid coverage. Overall, coverage losses expected from the reconciliation bill are comparable to those expected under the attempts to repeal the Affordable Care Act wholesale in 2017. We've been active with other marketplaces to raise awareness of the significant impacts of the bill, including sending letters to both House and Senate, as well as sharing explainers and data related to the bill's impact with congressional staff. We've shared this information with local stakeholders as well. We're seeing increasing media attention on the marketplace impacts of the bill, and other entities such as the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, Insurance Trade Group AHIP, and the American Medical Association have expressed concerns about the bill's impact on marketplaces and the insurance and provider landscapes more broadly. The bill is now with the Senate, where lawmakers have sought the Senate parliamentarians' ruling on whether provisions meet the standard for inclusion in a reconciliation bill, and may make other changes to the House's version. Any changes to accommodate Senate negotiations must be reapproved by the House before the bill could travel to the President for signing, adding strategic complexity to the process. Congressional leadership has articulated a goal of passing a bill by July 4th. We'll also continue to monitor for any legislative proposals as this process continues from the Senate, or even in a separate bill, to extend those enhanced premium tax credits while we still prepare for an open enrollment with a variety of scenarios with regard to their availability. And I'm happy to pause for a moment for any questions on the congressional activity before moving on to the judicial branch.
Any questions or comments? Marissa, I don't see any.
Okay. Great. Then finally, just a few items of note from the courts. This term, the Supreme Court heard arguments in Kennedy versus Braidwood Management, a case that challenges the composition of the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force and asserts that members of the task force should be appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. The lawsuit was brought by individuals and small businesses who take issue with the ACA's requirement to cover high-value preventive services without cost sharing, because the Preventive Services Task Force determined that pre-exposure prophylaxis medications, or PrEP, for the prevention of HIV met the standards for no cost sharing. There could be a range of outcomes in this case, from an invalidation of the ACA's provisions around no-cost preventive services to a decision more narrowly focused on the composition of the Preventive Services Task Force and the executive branch's role in it. State law would require fully funded insurance plans to continue offering no-cost preventive services as they do today in the event of a change in federal law. And MCC regulations also require individuals seeking to comply with the individual mandate to have coverage that provides no-cost preventive services. Separately, on May 19th, the Supreme Court issued an order that lifts a lower court's pause on administration efforts to end temporary protected status for roughly 600,000 individuals from Venezuela. Similarly, on May 30th, the court issued an order that will allow the administration to proceed with its termination of parole status for about 500,000 individuals from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Both cases will continue through the appeal process in lower courts. Should individuals lose their lawfully present status in the U.S., they would no longer qualify for Health Connector coverage or subsidies. Over the next few weeks, we'll continue to be deeply engaged in alerting stakeholders and congressional staff to the significant impacts this bill would have in the health insurance and healthcare ecosystem here in Massachusetts. We'll continue to plan this year's open enrollment period so that we can be responsive to whatever set of policies is in place. And as always, we'll continue to execute on our mission of providing high-value coverage to families and small businesses across the state. And I'm happy to take any other questions that folks might have.
Any questions? Yeah, Marissa, I just want to recognize, I know it's a very, this is an understatement, challenging policy environment to work in, and how very difficult it is when we all see things that have been built and succeeded under attack. And I know that's, both professionally a hard environment to work in, but personally as well. So we're really grateful for the work that all of you are doing in this environment. And so we thank you for that.
Thank you.
You and your team, obviously.
We appreciate that.
Okay, so seeing no other questions, the last thing we need to do is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Was that a second, Matt?
I think it was somebody else, but I'll second it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as long as someone takes responsibility for it. So, okay, Kathy, last time you got to poll us.
Okay, Commissioner Caljo,
Aye.
Michael,
Yes.
Bella,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yeah.
Robin,
Yes.
Dimitri,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Great to see everyone. Enjoy the beautiful day.
Thank you all. Thanks,
Well,
Nancy,
well,
for filling in.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Nancy. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.